City Councilor for Ward 3, David Curtin, is here with us today, and he's going to give us a little bit of a glimpse into a new initiative that's being started as a result of a request from our sister city, Chernivtsi, in Ukraine. Councilor Curtin, thanks for joining us today on the show.
It's my pleasure, Randy. Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about yourself and how you got involved. Firstly, you were elected as the Ward 3 City Councilor. Métis ancestry, and very proud of that. But you're involved at a little bit of taking the reins here for this initiative. Tell us a little bit about how these letters from Chernivtsi came and what's being done about that.
Fantastic. And I really do appreciate this opportunity to talk about this, Randy. The initiative is called Unite for Ukraine, and the website is called uniteforukraine.ca. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But prior to February 24th, of course, was the day that Russia began its invasion into Ukraine. Prior to that day, the mayor of Chernivtsi, Roman Klitschko, was working feverishly to be as ready as possible to continue to be able to provide all of the necessities for his citizens. He knew that there was going to be the threat of invasion from Russia, but also B, if that happens, Chernivtsi, being in the southwest portion of Ukraine, would probably not be invaded right away, but there would be many displaced Ukrainians who would pour into Ukraine. Well, come February 24th, when the invasion happened, Mayor Klitschko emailed our mayor, Charlie Clark, and asked for a list, or provided a list, pardon me, of all of the supplies that they needed in order to be able to be as ready for the influx of displaced people as possible, and to be able to keep them as safe, sheltered, and warm as possible. And that list includes generators, water tanks, radios, and a lot of humanitarian aid. And so that was the seed that began the initiative now known as Unite for Ukraine here in Saskatoon. We took a look at that list, and the firefighters, by the way, also got a letter from the firefighters in Chernivtsi. And so we looked at both of those lists and decided, okay, we've got to be able to procure these supplies, but we've also got to be able to get them to Ukraine. And I got to tell you, Randy, in some situations, the shipping is more expensive than the supplies these days. And that's been one of the challenges. And so the initiative, Unite for Ukraine, is to raise funds to be able to procure those supplies and to be able to ship those supplies. And there are a number of measures in that initiative, but the centerpiece of it is going to be a luncheon in Saskatoon. It's going to be taking place on May 4th at TCU Place from 11:30 until 1:30. And we are hoping to make this the largest luncheon ever in the history of Saskatoon. TCU Place has been one of our major partners, and they've done an amazing job in keeping the cost down for this. We are hoping that we will be able to attract maybe 700 people, maybe more to this luncheon. There's going to be entertainment, of course, Ukrainian entertainment at the luncheon, Ukrainian food at the luncheon. As a matter of fact, Randy, I've invited you before we got on the air here to come and join me next week, and we're going to go taste that Ukrainian food next week. Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. So there'll be the entertainment, there'll be the great food, and Mayor Charlie Clark is working behind the scenes right now to connect with Mayor Klitschko in Chernivtsi in order for us to have an address from Mayor Klitschko back when we have that luncheon as well. So lots of reasons to come to this luncheon. Of course, the main reason is that we can give as much money as we can to the firefighters. It's the firefighters who are leading this, Jay Protz and his team over at the International Association of Firefighters Local 80. They're the ones who are leading this charge. They are the ones who have already been procuring a lot of supplies and working on shipping. And we want to raise more money for them to be able to get them the rest of the supplies and to be able to get them to Ukraine.
This doesn't sound like it's been a long-term planned event. These letters were just received recently. When did that happen, and how did this committee tend to unite around and galvanize around the request?
Yeah, the letters came in on that first day of the invasion to the mayor's office, and then they were released about 10, maybe a couple of weeks ago at a city council meeting. And it was at that time that I kind of thought, okay, let's try to get a committee together and see what we can do. I went over and visited Jason Abig, the CEO of the Greater Saskatoon Chamber of Commerce, or the Chamber as it's called, and he jumped on it right away. People like you jumped on it right away. Now, Randy, that's one thing I got to say. There hasn't been an answer of no yet to any request that has been made by any of us to anybody. It's been amazing how people have jumped on board for this effort. I mean, Chernivtsi is our sister city. Saskatoon only has 3 sister cities, and we have a very, very strong relationship with Chernivtsi. We became a sister city back in 1991, but our 2 universities, which are much the same, by the way, have had a relationship going long before that. And so for many decades now, there have been student exchanges and cultural exchanges between Saskatoon and Chernivtsi. So we've got a very strong relationship. And I think that's part of the reason why, like I say, nobody has said no. The other part of the reason, of course, 14% of the people in Saskatoon have some sort of tie to Ukraine. And so this is very, very close to many people's families. Many people, such as yourself, have families in Ukraine, and again, that's why we are not getting no for an answer from anybody that we have talked to. And so, Randy, I'm going to ramble on here, but we've got an amazing committee, including yourself and Jason Abig, Dave Duchek, and David Lelache. We've got a couple of members of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, so Lorianne Gabruk and Christina Rybalka. The firefighters, of course, Jay Protz and Greg and all those guys who have been working with us on this, and many others, and a couple who have really amazed me: Alessia Hersky and her husband Rostik. Many years ago, they started an organization called Stream of Hopes. Once the invasion hit here hit Ukraine, they really ramped up their efforts to get supplies to Ukraine. And they opened up a warehouse on Faithful Avenue. People have been dropping off medicines, all sorts of supplies. They have ended up already sending, I think it's 10 tons of supplies and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. They're on the committee as well. It's a good, powerful committee. And the one goal is to be able to help the people in Chernivtsi.
I find it interesting that when we look at Saskatoon's history with Chernivtsi, I recall it going back to 1977 with even councillor, alderman at that time, Morris Chernesky, Alderman Dede, and later Mayor Dede. That relationship has solidified, and I do commend City Council in Saskatoon for acknowledging as a precedent-setting motion to contribute to this event. I shouldn't say the event. I guess the sister city,
right,
donating through the IAFF. So again, saluting Jay Protz and everyone involved on that end. There's a connection with Edmonton as well. You mentioned in terms of trying to get things sent over there.
Yeah, you know, the firefighters have been working very closely with the firefighters in Edmonton for this, and so you've heard about the displaced Ukrainians who have been flown to Canada. Many of them have been flown to Edmonton. Well, when that happens, the plane lands, the people get off, and the firefighters in Edmonton, just as soon as that last person steps off the plane, have already got the equipment in their hands, and they're filling that plane up for the trip back to Romania. The plane lands in Romania, and all of the equipment and the supplies that are on that plane cross the border into Ukraine and on its way throughout Ukraine. All of the effort that we're doing, and much of the effort that all of the effort that Saskatoon's firefighters are doing, involves supplies going right to our sister city as well. So I give my hats off to Jay and his team at the Saskatoon firefighters, but they were they were working in tandem with the Edmonton firefighters, who were able to find a very, very good shipping route. At first, there was a lot of effort to go through Poland, but it was discovered through the Edmonton firefighters that landing in Romania and going through the border at that area, even though it's a little further than Chernivtsi, it actually took less time, had a little less money, which is important.
We had talked about this before, and the question had come up at the Ukrainian Canadian Professional and Business Association that we have with us a city councillor in Ward 3 that has no Ukrainian ancestry, but is at the helm along with Councillor Hill, who had been to Chernivtsi for the 600th anniversary. Why such a passion for helping?
Because it's needed, I guess. It's really easy for me when you see what's going on there. When you see the terrible rampage that the Russians are creating, but you see the bravery and the way in which the Ukrainians are pushing back, it's easy. It was an easy decision to be able to do this. And it's only been a matter of days, quite frankly, that this committee has been put together and we've been able to achieve what we've been able to do. That just says that everybody who has been involved just has no compunction to delay anything or to take a pause. It's let's get going, let's start out running, and let's raise as much money as we can.
Councillor Curtin, I want to thank you for the work that you are doing and continue to push for supporting this initiative. If people wanted to help out and buy a ticket and support the luncheon or contribute, what would they do?
Yeah, thank you for that, Randy. They would go to dial in. How old am I? They log on to uniteforukraine.ca. Again, Jason Abig and his team at the chamber have done an amazing job in creating a website, uniteforukraine.ca. You can go on there. You'll be able to see the letters that I was talking about. You'll be able to get a little bit more background information on how our city and Chernivtsi have become sister cities. And there's also a button for you there to be able to buy a ticket to that luncheon happening on May 4th at TCU Place. Like I say, we want to make this the biggest luncheon in the history of Saskatoon, and with all of the money going from that luncheon going to help the people in Chernivtsi.
Councillor Curtin, thank you so much for doing this. We'll see you there on the 4th of May.
My pleasure. Thanks, Randy.
That's our show for today. I'd like to thank our guest, Tamara Edwards from the Saskatchewan Rattlers, as well as Councillor David Curtin, representing the Unite for Ukraine initiative. I'm your host, Randy Shabila. We'll see you next time on Connect.